Alrighty. We are on Tehillim Chaf, Psalm 20. And this one might be familiar to you. Um, we say it in Shachris every morning, well, every weekday morning. And there's an interesting introduction here from Rev Hirsch. He says that um, Tehillim Yud Ches and Yud Tes, 18 and 19, are about David recognizing Hashem's involvement in his life, understanding that Hashem helped him because of his own loyalty to David, and the ongoing relationship between them. And then this Tehillah, Rav Hirsch explains, is actually written in the voice of the Jewish people speaking to David, which is a really fascinating concept, considering that presumably David is the author of the Tehillah. So he's writing this as if the people are speaking to him. He's writing it in their voice. And the underlying idea here is that it's really a concept of Kiddush Hashem, that when we conduct ourselves in a way that projects godliness, when we live our lives in a way that demonstrates we are committed to Hashem, then others can't help but notice. They can't help but be impressed. They can't help be drawn to us. This is what it means for us to be an Or Lagoim, a light to the nations, a Mamleches Kohanim, a nation of priests. What is the job of the priest? What is the job of the Kohen? It's to be an intermediary between Hashem and the people. And the best way to lead, ask any successful leader, the best way to lead is by example. So essentially what David is saying is that his own struggle to overcome adversity, to remain true to Hashem, to have faith that Hashem will protect him from his enemies, even through the difficult times, that he recognizes that he was successful to the degree that the people responded by declaring absolute loyalty to him, not so much him as David, but him as the Melech. Because what is a Melech? A Melech is the one who unites the nation and leads the nation and gives the nation its sense of national purpose. And so David is writing this in the voice of Hashem, responding to him, having faithfully discharged his duties both as David the man and as David the king. And so it begins with the familiar formula, Lamanat Mizpah David, right? And in this case, again, we have the classic translation of Lamanat as for the conductor, the one who orchestrates creation, and Rav Hirsch's understanding of the word Netzach, the one who grants victory. And both of those seem particularly appropriate here, because David is the one through whom Hashem is orchestrating the harmony of the people, and by uniting the people has brought them victory. Ya'anecho Hashem b'yom tzara. Hashem will answer you on the day of your distress, the day of your trouble. Yisagevcha Shem Elokei Yaakov. He will raise you up. Let me rephrase this. The name of the God of Yaakov will raise you up. on high. And Joel's asking who is more exalted, David the man or David the king? I think they're really inseparable. That's part of David's greatness, is that he once he was anointed and once he was coronated, he never saw a distinction between himself and the king. He recognized that his ultimate responsibility. So it's really a question of stages. David is the man who reinvents himself, as it were, in the persona of the king. So you've got these two elements here in this opening pasuk. Hashem will answer you on the day, your day of trouble, and the name of Yaakov will raise you on high. So what are those two messages here? It first brings a mashal from Chazal. It's a mashal that a man is carrying his son on his shoulders as they travel. And they're going from one city to the next. And the son asks, you can see this is universal, right? What do children ask on the trip? When will we get there? Yeah, so we have a Talmudic precedent for this. Right? When will we get to the city? And the man says to him, we'll know that we're arriving at the city when we see the Beis Kavaras, when we see the cemetery. Because typically the cemeteries are placed at the outskirts of the city. But what exactly is it that Chazal want to teach us with this? It's the idea that the sages just teach elsewhere. They say when you're struggling against the Yetzer Hara, try to find the strength to overcome it. If you can't do that, if you're not working, go to the Beis Medrash, learn Torah. If that doesn't work, say Shema Yisrael. And if that doesn't work, remember the day of death. Remember that we're all going to have to make an accounting at some point. And that if I give in to temptation now, I might be able to come up with all the rationalizations in the world why it's okay to do what I'm contemplating doing. But when I have to make that accounting before the king of the universe, it's not going to be very convincing. Right? And what does Shlomo Melech say in Koheles? He says, better the house of mourning than the house of rejoicing. Because rejoicing, it's so easy to get out of hand. It's so easy to lose ourselves in revelry that we forget why we're celebrating. We forget why we're full of joy, and we're just immersed in this frivolity and this fervor. My son, when he was hired by one of the big investment banks in New York, so they took all the new hires out on a cruise in New York Harbor. Yeah, it was very lavish, the food, the music, the drink, right? And there were two new hires that had a little more drink than they should have, and someone bet them that they couldn't swim back to the shore. And the next day they did not have jobs because the bank said, if you don't have enough judgment not to do this, we cannot put you in charge of hundreds of millions of dollars. It wasn't punitive. It was simply, you don't have the character that we need in the people that we have doing the job that we do. It's so easy to lose oneself in a moment, in an instant, right? And so the base kavaras, right? So what is it? What is it? What's the sage's message here? That as we are traveling through life and we're looking to come to our destination. What is our destination? Our destination is Olam Haba, right? What do you look for? You look for the base kavaras. You look for the people and how they've lived their lives. Some of them were tzaddikim who earned entry into the next world. Some of them weren't tzaddikim who didn't earn entry into the next world. And so when the people say to David, Hashem will answer you at the time of your distress, well, why will Hashem answer you on the day of your distress? Well, again, they're speaking to David because you have lived that kind of a life. You've lived a life where you are fully committed to the Ratzon Hashem. You're doing Hashem's will. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, do Hashem's will as if it's your will, so that he will do his will. He will do your will as if it's his will. In other words, make your will and Hashem's will one and the same. And automatically, Hashem will fulfill your wishes. But how do you get there? That's the second half of the pasuk. The name of the God of Yaakov will raise you on high. What does that mean? Right? The name of Yaakov, that's the name of struggle. That's the name of suffering. That's the name of challenge. Right? Yaakov Avinu, he had to deal with his brother Esau. He had to deal with Lavan. He had to deal with the abduction of his daughter. He had to deal with the loss of Yosef. His whole life was one of struggle. And David, how did David find the resolve to make it through the challenges of life? By calling out to the God of Yaakov. David lived the same kind of a life, constant challenge, constant struggle. And even in the good times, remember to call out to the God of Yaakov, because that will prepare you for the difficult times. Yishlach Ezracho Mikodesh. He, Hashem, will send forth your help from the sanctuary, from the Kodesh. Umitzion Yisodecha. And he will strengthen you from Tzion. And here you have two different concepts. You have the idea of divine service. That's the Kodesh. That is your attitude of sanctity. That, it's there's a beautiful Sfas Emes, I probably mentioned it before. The Midrash says that and it's on the pasuk, Im b'chukoi soitei lecho, if you will walk in my statutes. It's curious phrasing. So the Midrash says that when David HaMelech would go out in the morning, right, he said to Hashem, every morning I go out to do this business, to meet that person, and my feet carry me to your Bati Midrashim and Bati Kanisius. My feet carry me to the study hall and to shul. And, it sounds like what David is saying is, I intend to go out and take care of business, but I'm just so passionate or so habituated in matters of kedusha that I don't end up in the federal building. I end up in the base medrash. But Sfas Emes says that's not what David means. He means that, yes, I have to take care of business. I have jobs to do. I'm the king. I can't neglect my duties. But I see everything as an expression of Avodas HaKodesh, of Avodas Hashem. And therefore, wherever I go, I turn that place into a shul. I turn that place into a study hall. And so that's the idea here. That David says, the people say to David, Hashem will send you his help from the sanctuary because you are always oriented towards his avoda, towards his kedusha. And he will strengthen you from Tzion. What is Tzion? Tzion is the land of Israel, with all the Jews living in it, keeping the Torah, with the Beis Hamikdash, with the Malchus Beis David. In other words, Hashem sends you help when you need it because of your attitude when you don't need it. When you're focused on the mission, the purpose, the reason you exist, when things are good, then you can count on Hashem's help when things are difficult. And that really is the story of David's life. And that's the theme of much of this Tehillim. Yizkor, Dalet, Yizkor kol minchaisecho. Hashem will remember, or in this context, accept your mincha offering. Vo'eloscha yedash nesela. And your uplifted offering, he will accept. And it's a peculiar word here, this word yedashne. It comes from a deshen, which means ashes. And the way Rav Hirsch interprets this, he will free your ascent offering from its ashes of constant repetition. Let's try to explain what that means. Every morning in the Beis Hamikdash, the first step of the avoda, before the Kohanim did anything else, the first thing they did was called the Trumas Hadeshin, the removal of the ashes from the altar. There was no korban brought at night. So they would bring the Tamid Shel Shabbos, the daily Shachris, the morning offering, the daily morning offering, and they would in the morning, early in the morning, and they would bring them the afternoon offering at the right before sunset. And then they would take all of the limbs and parts that were not part of the formal offerings, and they would pile those up on the altar on the fire, and they would smolder all night long so that the altar should never be idle. There should always be something there. And then the first step in the morning was to sweep away those ashes. So what's interesting is that this was considered the first act of the new day rather than the last act of the previous day, even though it was done, I think it was done before dawn. And the idea is that every day should be looked at in two ways. Every day should be looked at as a new start, but it should simultaneously be looked at as a continuation of the previous day. Try holding those ideas in your head at the same time. We're never prisoners to the past because of tshuva, because of what we call hischadshus. We're never prisoners of the past, and yet we are building upon the past. So if we've made mistakes in the past, we can free ourselves from those mistakes, from those errors. But at the same time, we can draw upon our successes to help us go farther than we might be able to get otherwise. By the way, I meant to say when I was beginning, tonight's my father's yahrzeit. So my chalik of this class should be devoted to his the aliyah of his neshama, Yochanan ben Yaakov. Now, the two parts in this pasuk, the mincha and the oilav. The mincha offering was it would accompany, excuse me, it would accompany the other korbanos. As the main part of the korban was an animal, but it was accompanied by a mincha, which is a flour offering, and a libation offering, that was wine. And the sages say simply that when you prepare a Suda, you have different parts of the Suda, right? You have the main course, you have the bread, you have the wine. But here, each of these, the mincha and the oil, they represent different elements of avodas Hashem. The mincha represents our possessions, things that are external to us. Our money, our house, our car, our clothes, right? The possessions that we have. The oiler represents us, our talents, our abilities, our personalities, our character. And you find this same idea. We'll see this theme continuing throughout this Tehillah, but you also find it in Kriya Shema. V'yohavto es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcho v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'edecha. Rav Schwab explains that b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, that means your inner strength, your abilities, your talents. And b'chol me'edecha, that means your possessions. The internal resources we have and the extrinsic resources that we have. And what's extrinsic to us, that's talking about hashgacha, right? The situations that Hashem creates for us and orchestrates for us. And that we see those, and as the idea is to recognize that Hashem has put us in these situations for our own benefit, even in times of struggle. But the oila, from the word ascent or elevated, right? That's showing us that we have the capacity to reach constantly higher heights. When we use the resources that we have, the intrinsic and the extrinsic resources, then what does Hashem do? He looks and he watches and he sees that we're using everything he's given us. And what does that motivate him to do? Give us more. You know, our abilities, our potential is not static. Potential is not limited. When we show Hashem we're using the potential he gave us, he gives us more potential. And we can actually accomplish more than we could have previously. And what do ashes represent? Ashes represent that something has been used up. It's gone, it's over, there's no more value, there's nothing more to be done with it. But the Trumas Hadeshin, right, and the way David uses this language to suggest that, is telling us that every day, the past is not, the past does not have to stay in the past. We can bring the past forward into the future and let it springboard us to new heights. Yitain lecha kilvavecho. May Hashem grant you, according to your own heart, and may He fulfill all your counsel. Now think about this passage. This is fascinating. Would you give this bracha to everybody? Think about your least favorite political figure. May Hashem grant you everything you desire and fulfill all of your advice. I don't know about you. There are people that I definitely would not give this bracha to. And yet, this is what Klal Yisrael is saying to David. I mean, is this not an expression of absolute confidence? You know, I've thought the, you know, if you want to give somebody a bracha and you're not sure exactly how oriented they are to avodas Hashem, you know, what do you say to them? So I think it's simple. You say, you should have hatzlacha. You should have success. What is success?
What you want.
No. Success is what Hashem wants for you.
Oh.
You may think You have your vision, right? We all have our own vision of what we think is success. That's not real success. And I still remember the way Dr. Gottlieb put this. He said, if you ran into a childhood friend and you start talking about the people you knew when you were growing up, and you ask your friend, oh, by the way, what happened to George? I said, George is incredibly successful. And then you find out that George is neither rich nor famous. Would you think you had been deceived? In the secular world, what else is there? There's fame, there's wealth, there's power. What else is there? That's success. But from a Torah point of view, what is success? Success is living a life consistent with the Ratzon Hashem. Means how one is seen in the community, how one is, what kind of a home one has, whether a person is engaged in work that's worthwhile and in improving the world. I mean, these are our signs of success. That's real success. So to wish somebody hatzlacha, right, saying you should live a life, right, you should make Hashem proud. That's success. Right? Whatever you think success might be, that's real success. And the Jewish people are saying to David HaMelech, we have witnessed your life, David. We've seen how you live. We've seen your values. You've seen how you deal with struggle and trial and difficulty. And you deserve the blessing that Hashem should grant you the desires of your own heart. And he should fill your counsel. And these same two ideas that we just talked about, the desires of your heart, says Rav Hirsch, those relate to how you use your material resources. And your counsel, that refers to the development of your inner self. And we recognize that with your sincerity, with your intellectual and spiritual integrity, you are worthy of such a blessing. Well, I thought we'd make it through this tonight, but but we do go for quality rather than quantity, right? We're going to take the next 2 weeks off. I expect to be out of town next week, and then it's Purim. So, but Ezra's Hashem, we will reconvene 2 weeks from tonight. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Good Chodesh, and have a Freilich and Purim.
Your father's neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
Amen. 2 weeks from tonight, Rabbi, is Purim.
I'm sorry, I meant 3 weeks from tonight. I was
3
skipping
weeks,
2 weeks.
yeah. Okay, very good.
So thank you for that correction.
Rabbi, everybody have a good Chodesh. Bracha v'tzlacha.
And we'll see you Sunday night at GoGo, I think, too, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, hope somebody reminds me. Okay. Have a good evening.
Okay, looking forward. Take care. Okay, bye.